So you're on the fence about buying a Tesla. You've heard some really good stuff, but some not so really good stuff. Does it actually skyrocket your electricity bill? Do you really need new $500 per tire tires every 10,000 miles? Does charging actually take 8+ hours? Well, as an owner for almost 4 years now, let's discuss those along with all the other reasons that I see people are hesitant for to hopefully nudge you over the edge into what I believe is the best daily driver that you can own. So let's go ahead and knock out the 3 that I just mentioned. Does it actually skyrocket your electricity bill? No. At least when you take into account your gas bill being 0. For me, my electric bill has gone up around $20 to $30 a month, driving roughly 1,000 miles. My gas bill was like $100 to $120 a month, averaging about 30 miles per gallon, doing that same 1,000 miles. If you live in a place with higher electricity prices versus me, I pay around 7 cents per kilowatt hour, then your electric bill will go up more. However, seeing as both gas and electricity price scale based on location, argument still stands and you're still saving money. Do you really need new tires every 10,000 miles? And do the EV specific tires that you supposedly need cost $500 per tire? There's this misconception that EVs are way heavier than their gas car counterparts, and this leads to significantly more tire wear. An M3 xDrive competition is between like 3,900 to 4,000 pounds, depending on how it's spec'd. And the Model 3, which was made as a direct competitor to the M3, is 4,054 pounds. Directly from Tesla's website, that's the curb weight. So yeah, EVs aren't necessarily heavier as long as you're comparing comparable gas vehicles. However, what will accelerate your tire wear is, well, acceleration, or just having a lead foot. The thing about EVs is that even the slowest EVs are quick compared to gas cars. And if it's your first time in a car that is quick off the line, well, you're going to want to use it. However, if you put the car in chill mode or you just learn some throttle control, don't stand on it at every single red light, then your tires are going to last their normal life. I'm about 15,000 miles in with my Michelin Cross Climate 2s, and wear is completely normal. Exactly what you would expect for a tire that's supposed to last for upwards of like 60,000 miles. When I sold my last Performance 3, my stock Pirelli tires had about 10,000 miles on them, and they looked almost new. And yes, I said Cross Climate 2s, which are not an EV specific tire, and they work great. So no, you do not need EV specific tires. The current stock tires on 18-inch Model 3 wheels are, I believe they're Michelin Primacy, like AS's, or I'll have it on screen now. And they're like only about $250 a tire, and they're always running deals on tires, and you can find them for sub $1,000 a set. The only Tesla where the super short life and high price tag rings somewhat true is if you're looking at a Plaid, driving at 24/7 in Plaid acceleration, because well, you paid for the Plaid, you're probably going to use Plaid. You're doing a ton of pulls and you want to replace with the stock tires, which are like staggered. They're really big. They also wear really fast on the insides. Then yeah, those are not going to last you super long, but they're still going to last you more than like 10,000 miles, assuming you're not standing on it 24/7, because in a Plaid, if you are, then like, yeah, those actually will eat up really quick. But for everyone else, just learn some throttle control and your tires will be just fine. Charging time, and does it really take 8 hours? This entirely depends on your charging setup. If we're talking public chargers like Tesla's superchargers, no, it does not take 8 hours even to go from 0 to 100%. Though we'll talk supercharging and if you can get away with owning a Tesla without home charging in just a second. If you have a level 1 charger, which is just a normal plug that you find around your house, these aren't meant to really be used as like long-term home charging, like stationary solutions, then yes, it can take, in fact, a lot more than 8 hours. It could take upwards of like 24+ hours to go from 0 to 100%. What you're really going to want is a level 2 charger. So this is a 240 volt outlet. Think of like a stove plug, a dryer plug, or some form of like dedicated EV charger, like box, like Tesla's wall connector. Then yeah, around 8 hours to go from 0 to 100% is pretty accurate. But assuming the car is not being driven literally 24/7 and it at least gets parked while you're sleeping, then this is not going to be an issue. The best comparison is like plugging your phone in at night. You really don't think about it charging because you're sleeping, and you just kind of wake up with it ready to go. Also, another thing to note is that you're never going from 0 to 100%. The average commute in the US is like 40 to 60 miles, which on most Teslas is like 10 to 20% battery used. That's what you're going to be recouping every night, not 100%. For me personally, I'm charging up every night to 80%. I use about 30% during my commute. So driving, Sentry mode going for like 6-7 hours, and then driving home or running a few errands on the way home, I'll get home with around about 50%. And I'll get the charging completed notification before midnight, most of the times before 11 p.m. Now, as for supercharging or just owning a Tesla without home charging, like I just mentioned, can you do it? Of course you can. Will it be more expensive? Yes. Will it be more inconvenient? Yes. But tons of people do it, and it does work. I actually have an entire video on this topic along with tips that should make owning a Tesla without home charging a little bit easier that you can check out. But a few things to know is, first, supercharging is more expensive versus home charging by quite a bit. In my area, for example, it's almost 3 times as expensive, which puts it in line with gas prices when you really break it down in a like mile per dollar way. Also, you lose out on one of the best parts about owning an electric car, and that's kind of just like getting out of the habit of having to think about stopping somewhere to make your car go, whether that be charging it or putting fuel in it. So you're still paying attention to your battery percentage, just like how you were with your fuel gauge, except unlike gas cars where you just stop at the gas station for a few minutes to fuel up, charging station, you're going to be sitting there for like 30 plus minutes, especially because since you don't have home charging, you're not topping up every night. You're probably going to be coming from a lower state of charge. So you're going to charge higher up, 85, 95%, and then you're going to drain it all the way down to like, 5, 10%. And so it's going to take you a lot longer to charge that versus if you were just using superchargers for like road trips where you're charging a really short amount from like, 20 to 50%. You're charging faster on the lower end of your battery. So you're in and out of there within 10, 15 minutes. Because once you start going up above 50, 60%, that's when you're really, really waiting for a while. Yeah, I see a lot of people trying to sugarcoat not having home charging because they want you to use the referral or whatever it might be. I'm just trying to tell you how it actually is. I also see the argument that people make, which is pretty valid, that even if you are paying around the same amount as gas and you are spending more time charging, you're still getting all the benefits of owning a Tesla, which is true. Me personally, my honest answer is I would not own a Tesla or any EV for that matter if I could not charge at home or work. If I had to rely solely on public charging, I just wouldn't do it, which is actually what I did. I originally planned to buy my first Model 3 back in 2020, but held off until I was out of my apartment and into a place where I could hook up a charger. And I'm glad I did, as having home charging, assuming it's level 2, in my opinion, is like half the reason to own an EV, as at that point, it truly does become more convenient than owning a gas car. Now, while we're on the topic of charging, let's talk range, and more specifically, range anxiety. Yes, it does go away. You will eventually get to a point where you know your car can do what you need it to do on a daily basis and you stop paying attention. For me, that was about 6 to 8 months in, which is actually one of the reasons I sold my long range. I realized that I just didn't care about range anymore. And I was fine with my car being able to do 300 miles versus 350 miles, but getting more performance. Also, I mentioned colder climate earlier, and for people wondering about varying efficiency when it is cold out and if that's a real thing, yes, it is. If you live in a place where it's really cold, your efficiency can and will take a hit, no matter how conservatively you're trying to drive. However, assuming you have home charging and you can top up every night, it doesn't really matter if you're using an extra 10, 15% on your battery, assuming that your commute is well within your car's capability, and it's not really going to be an issue for you. Yeah, the switch from gas to EV, the fundamentals, so range, charging, fuel costs, are all pretty positive. But what about other things you hear about Teslas? Build quality, depreciation, insurance costs, battery replacement, and service pricing. As someone that's had 3 Teslas at this point, the build quality stereotype is way overblown. There is a 99.99% chance your Tesla is going to be fine. Like I said, I'm 3 Teslas in, and the worst thing I've experienced are some rattles. And I'm someone that has taken a delivery day checklist with me to every single delivery I've had and gone through the whole checklist. In fact, I'll have that checklist linked down below. The only reason you see so much of, Teslas have bad build quality online is because Teslas get clicks. They're the newer, more popular, more talked about brand. Plus, they're EV only, and EV only, just EVs in general, are foreign to a lot of people, and people are just curious. Also, most people that do scream the whole like build quality issues have never been in a newer, more luxurious, higher price car, because if you talk to actual owners, they'll talk about QA issues that they have with them. As for the depreciation, this is a real thing, but just like build quality is pretty overblown. Most of the crazy depreciation like posts and articles that you see fail to mention that they were purchased at like the all-time highs back in 2022, and the MSRP prices now are much, much lower. Also, not to mention, Tesla just refreshed their 2 most popular cars. So yeah, the old models are going to lose a ton of value, just like every other car that gets a refresh. The crazy car market back in 2021 to 2022 has really skewed people into looking at cars as investments. They're butter investments at best. They just melt away. If you want a car that's going to hold value, buy a Corolla, buy a Tacoma, but the trade-off is you're going to be driving a Corolla or a Tacoma. As for insurance, that's entirely dependent upon you and where you live. I have an entire video going over my expenses, which includes insurance, and I pay around $170 a month for like maxed out $250, $500, $250, cars paid off. I do have a high deductible just because I'm not bothering my insurance unless it's like worst case scenario. But if you're on the younger side, you have a bad record, you live in Florida, you don't have a house or other cars to bundle with it, then you could be paying a whole lot more. Pretty much the whole theme here is that most stuff you see online is just completely overblown for clicks. Lastly, for batteries, no, they do not need replaced every, 10, 20, 30, even up to like 100,000 miles, and they do not cost 20 to 30 grand. The most recent pricing that I've seen is around 12 to 13,000 for a long range battery, and these batteries are expected to go well over 100,000 miles. Plus, you have a battery warranty of 8 years or 100 or 120,000 miles, depending on if you get a base or a long range. As for service, I really don't see people complaining about service pricing. It's mainly service wait times, which yeah, I will agree. Service wait times are pretty bad. A lot of Tesla service centers are just short-staffed and backed up. This is kind of just what happens when a very young car company becomes the best-selling car in the world. I will say though that if your problem is critical or it's like a brand new car and you're reporting like delivery day issues, you tend to get priority. Every time that I've taken delivery of a car and I've had to like go in to have something fixed or whatever, I'm in within like a week. The actual service itself, like the experience, has always been really good for me. But yeah, waiting like a month, 2, if not more months is just kind of exhausting. But yeah, if you're on the fence, hopefully this video pushes you over, as assuming the car is comfortably within your budget and you can have your home charging like set up and ready to go by the time you take delivery. I truly do believe this will become your favorite car to daily. Also, not to mention all the stuff to be excited for about owning a Tesla. You got your super low running costs, you got your constant software updates, like cars that were made 3-4 years ago. The UI is pretty much the same as my brand new car. The full self-driving, best-in-class safety, and the instant torque and acceleration. I've also seen a lot of people recently say that due to Elon's transition into politics, that this is directly affecting their buying decision. And I've seen people on both sides of the spectrum. They are buying one now, and they're not buying one. Does this affect your buying decision? If you are new around here and you want to see more Tesla-related stuff in your YouTube feed, then feel free to subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.